I'm back in New York after being in Atlanta all week. It's a little after 6 on Sunday. I'm in Central Park. I have a few episodes that are queued up from last week. Yeah, it's like a 2-hour flight between Atlanta and LaGuardia. I thought I'd have time to edit those episodes. I think there's 3, maybe 4 episodes. Yeah, they're all set up and ready to go. So I just need to run through them. I thought I'd have enough time. We got to the airport early in Atlanta. We flew out on Friday, or flew back from Atlanta on Friday, which I think is when the government was reopened-ish. And our flight was not canceled. And I don't think it was really delayed. The flight down here was definitely delayed. Not canceled, but definitely delayed. Instead of doing the editing and posting, I almost finished a book I'm reading now, which is, I think it's like How to Build a Race Car by Adrian Newey. I'm on a Kindle, so I think I'm 85% done. It's pretty interesting, especially this year. I think Newey went from Red Bull, which is where his career is currently in the book, at least the stage I'm in. I think he went to Aston Martin. When all the changes next year, it'll be interesting to see how his experience and expertise in design helps that team succeed. Saw the new Audi livery. It looks cool, but I think all of the Formula One cars look cool without all the sponsorship on them, which is what the view of the Audi car was. It is good to be home. Atlanta was cool. The food was okay. The people were very Southern friendly. I stayed in Midtown, and the event and meetings we were going to was in downtown, which I think is about a 30-minute walk-ish. And it just seemed like it was quiet, maybe outside of Friday. It just seemed like the stretch there was quiet. Got to see the Olympic Park, cool. Walked by the Coca-Cola Museum, cool. Get a photo of this. This looks great. The skies this morning are like whatever it is, partially cloudy. Definitely not partially sunny. The sun is not quite up yet. I think probably closer to 7 this morning. Definitely first light though. So you get that early light bounce off of the glass skyscrapers. You'll probably get a little bit of orange light once the sun comes up off of the west side buildings. Yeah, food was okay. It's quiet city, at least that part that we were in, even though that there was 20,000 folks that were attending this event and roundabout meetings. Buildings looked cool. This is my second time in Atlanta. My first time like spending any time in Atlanta proper. We did have Korean barbecue one night. That was good. I mentioned earlier, maybe even before I left, that they're putting the stands up for the Thanksgiving Day parade. Yeah, well, they're up. I think they've got a couple more to go. Yeah, from like 66th to 77th. Looks like for the most part, the stands are up. It's crazy, isn't it? Like Thanksgiving, almost 2 weeks away. A week away from this Thursday? Or is it this Thursday? I don't know. I did take my film camera down with me, and I loaded up with some Kodak. It's the 400 TX, the black and white. I got back on Friday, but by the time we got home, I kind of wanted just to stay home. And then yesterday, it was full of unpacking and kind of getting caught up on a bunch of things around the house. So today I'll drop off the film with the lab. I think black and white usually takes a little bit longer. So maybe next week sometime I'll post those photos. Strangely, I'm a little excited about this role. I think I do better with black and white. I think I'm more comfortable with black and white. We'll see, right? It's one of those things about film that you just never know until it's developed. And I think I still have a sheet of negatives down there that I'll pick up too. So I'll do that later today. Yeah, I'm way too early to see the east-facing west buildings get lit up. Maybe by the time I get down to 72nd, down by the Dakota building. Did you know the Dakota building was named after Frank and Nancy Dakota, who later changed their name to Sinatra? Totally kidding. I think it was named after the location that it's in. You think about back then, the majority of folks probably lived in downtown, right around Wall Street, then started to expand upwards or uptown. Yeah, so the building was built all the way in the upper west side, 72nd, so it's probably 100 blocks up. And probably right around the time Central Park was being built. So far out, they figured might as well be in the Dakotas. And there's the name of the building. Yeah, it's nice and cool this morning. It is probably in the 40s or 50s. Tiny bit of humidity. It's such a beautiful and old school, ornate building. Yeah, definitely a tiny bit breezy. Apparently, it's not cold enough for the birds to head south. In the 10, 12 years we've lived here, we've been lucky to have back units. So these are more or less the homes that are facing the backs of other homes. The backyards on the bottom floors, and decks more or less facing each other, with a ton of trees, which attracts birds, owls, all the other sing-song creatures. We're always surprised how late they stay in the winter. In fact, I think some of them even stay throughout the winter. I'm pretty sure owls do. Look at that shot. Huh. The top of this building is kind of cool. Yeah, there's a ton of leaves on the ground too. You get that without that in there? It's fun trying to line up the horizon on the camera, and it does not look straight in the building itself. I joined the neighborhood subreddit a couple weeks ago. Now, a lot of people are mentioning this light on 72nd Street, this new light down there. A lot of folks are just shocked by it. I think one person commented, it's there because the block is so long and you want people to be able to cross the street. Somebody replied that, yeah, but jaywalking is not illegal. It is legal in New York City. So what's the point? I think one of the nice things is it slows down traffic a little bit. But they haven't really even painted the lines for the crosswalk yet. You think they would do that first? Maybe they wouldn't even have to put a light in if they painted the sidewalk. I did bring the digital camera with me today, so I'll add a couple of photos to the podcast player. I think if you look at your podcast player, assuming it supports embedded images, I'm not sure what the name of the feature is called. I use Overcast for my podcast player, and it shows it. I think it more or less shows up by chapter. Otherwise, it'll just show the image of the podcast itself. And it doesn't put that much more file size. So when you're downloading it, it doesn't add tens of megabytes of size. I think the trick is figure out where to place the images when you're editing and then producing the episode. Yeah, it's very quiet out today. Even the park was pretty quiet. Not a lot of runners, not many bikers. Usually on the streets, I'll see some dog walkers. Here, there. Somebody is hustling for a late flight or train. She's probably heading down to the 72nd Street subway. I was reading that they're looking at cleaning up Penn Station. The problem with doing it in any meaningful way is that Madison Square Garden sits on top of it, and the garden is basically made of concrete. So they had to put all these pillars in Penn Station to make sure that the garden wouldn't fall into Penn Station. They're coming up with these new ideas of wrapping the garden in glass and then removing some of the concrete. Then they can remove some of the pillars in Penn Station, which will open up more space. I mean, it's just so crowded down there and low ceilings. So it probably feels more cramped than it actually is. So there's that, or relocating the garden, which they've done once, at least once already. It used to be over at like 25th and is that 5th Avenue? It's where the Madison Square Park is. And if they moved the garden to a new spot, certainly they could renovate it, which would be great. I mean, it's a cool place anyway. And they put like an open space above that, then just completely gut Penn Station and probably mirror Moynihan Hall, hopefully with more seats. I think they brought in Andy Byford, who's the guy they brought in to revamp the New York City subway. Who's a good guy. He's done some good stuff around the world with public transportation. I think he even worked on Amtrak for a little bit. And I think they're just going through the funding process now, federal or state funding or construction.